What expenses do you calculate when underwriting a deal, and how do you calculate those expenses? Well, funny you ask. There's this awesome little calculator called the Ingram Rental Calculator, which is available for free in the App Store of your choice, whether that's the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. You can download that app and you can punch in numbers just like I would. For the most part, I would say that the creation of this app was caused by two things. You know what? I'm going to make that three things. The first thing is that I really wanted to figure out a way to give you all YouTube viewers something for free. And under no circumstances is it any data collection, is it any data monitoring, and there's nothing, there's no paywalls, there's no hidden in-app purchases or anything like that. The only thing that I do is there's a little banner at the bottom of the app that has like three or four things on it that would cause me to make money if you clicked on any of those things and did it. I think it's a free trial to PropStream, 7-day free trial, and then if you use that software, you like it, and you have it for 8 days or more, then you're going to get charged a monthly fee, and some of that will come my way. I'm very appreciative. I think everybody should use PropStream. The second thing is the mastermind. So I have a mastermind that I do. There are two groups currently. There are usually about 10 people in each group, and we meet for 1 hour a week. Each week there are two different men in the middle where they come up with any sort of problem they're having, either professionally or personally, and everybody gives feedback on that issue. We also are currently doing a study where we are reading books written by billionaires and watching interviews with billionaires. And we kind of brainstorm pretty quickly on what some key takeaways of those words or of those interviews were, and how we can apply those to our real estate investing business or our business on the local perspective. So it's a lot of fun. If you are a guy that really wants to be around like-minded people, I would say that this is definitely something that you should check out or consider. And then the last thing I think I advertise is a list of books that I have read that have links to the books, like Amazon links to the books that you can click on. And if you buy that book from that link there, then I'll get compensated a very small percentage of that from Amazon. So those are the only ways that I make money from this app. Everything else is completely just to be useful. So the expenses, pretty much, I mean, what you're going to want to do is you're going to line item out all of the income from that property, and then line item out all of the expenses that you're going to have. Now, there are hard expenses that you're going to have on the property in a predictable manner, and then there are made up expenses. So the hard expenses would be things like your mortgage payment, the insurance, the taxes associated with that property. You're also going to have things like, the utilities. If it's a multifamily that you're responsible for the utilities, you're going to have your property management fee, which I would include even if you are managing it yourself. Pretty much think that's about it. And then you're going to have your made up fees that a lot of people tell you that you need to include for some reason, just to give like more conservative numbers or something. I really don't know. And that is your capital expenditures. So you're going to want to figure out how much money you're comfortable setting aside for the capital expenditure items to be replaced whenever they go bad. Things like roofs, HVAC systems, water heaters, driveways, things like that. You're going to have a repair maintenance budget where you think that you're going to be able to be comfortable setting aside a certain percentage for repairs and maintenance. Things like leaking faucets, clogged drains. Clogged drains, you should probably always reassess back to the person that clogged the drain. But things like that, maybe a cabinet door falling off for some reason. And then you're going to have your vacancy, which is also kind of a made up thing. And I guess, the theory is if you set aside 4% for vacancy on a monthly basis, when it actually goes vacant for however long it takes you to fill that vacancy, you would be able to pay yourself from that vacancy reserve, maybe, so that you don't miss any cash flow. I really don't know. I don't like the made up stuff because it is unpredictable and usually wrong. So there's this one spreadsheet that I made. It's called the Capital Expenditures Calculator, or CapEx Calculator. And I went through and took the total overall price. So let's say a roof costs $10,000 and its life expectancy is 30 years. If you want to make sure that you have enough money to replace that roof 30 years from now when it goes bad, then you need to do 30 times 12, 360, $10,000 divided by 360, and put that money away for a new roof on a monthly basis, so that 10 years from now, you've got that money set aside already there for a new roof. You're going to want to repeat that process for everything that could possibly go wrong with that house: the hot water heater, the furnace, the driveway, the siding. And what you're going to find is you will very quickly come up with a number that is unrealistically high to set aside on a monthly basis in order to appropriately pay for, out of the cash flow, all of the things that are going to go wrong with that house. Ultimately, if you look at a house and investing in it, then you are pretty much going to rebuild that house every 70 or 80 years. That is when, the life expectancy of all of those things. During that time, you're going to pretty much have a new house every 70 or 80 years, and that's going to cost a lot to do. Similarly, I like to compare, analyzing and calculating and making cash flow profits off of real estate investing to writing the insurance on vehicles. So if you are familiar with how much you pay on a monthly basis for your auto insurance, then, imagine if your car was the only car that insurance company wrote the insurance on, right? All of the things that could potentially go wrong with your car that insurance company is providing coverage for, you can't possibly afford, and that company can't possibly charge enough to have enough money set aside for all of the things that could potentially go wrong, especially when you start considering the liability risk, like, a horrible scenario of, like, let's say you hitting, a bus or causing a bus to, full of, children or something. That would be horrific. So that would be a horrible claim that insurance company couldn't possibly cover from the premiums they charge you on your one vehicle. However, if an insurance company charged or wrote insurance on 10,000, 100,000 different vehicles, then statistically speaking, now you are messing with some really big numbers where even if something catastrophic does happen, it's not going to happen to all 10,000 or all 100,000 cars at once. So the cash flow from the premiums collected on a monthly basis from those 10,000 cars are going to have enough free cash flow associated with it for you to take care of any of the things that might go wrong with your car. And even more so on the liability aspect, because liability events are so rare from a very large statistical standpoint that usually on an insurance policy, the liability is one of the cheaper charges because it's so infrequent. It's easier to kind of do the actuarial and underwriting data for. So that is kind of how you should approach your real estate investing portfolio as well. Is if you're going to be very hard pressed to ever actually show any profit off one or two rental properties. The threshold that I've always it's arbitrary, but kind of made up, is somebody that is interested in getting started in real estate investing should not be happy with anything less than 10 properties. For your first couple of years, you should be absolutely racing in a full out sprint to get to 10 properties as fast as possible. And I would even say, just 10 doors as fast as possible. And what you're going to notice whenever you get to those 10 doors is your cash flow is going to be sufficient from the other 9 to handle most of the things that could go wrong with any one of those units. So if you take moderately good care of your portfolio, then it's going to be very unlikely that you have like a maintenance order or a capital expenditure item that all of these properties are going to need inside the same month. So when my brother and I had fewer than 10 properties, we had a very painful conversation with each other at the end of every month, trying to figure out how much money we needed to each put into the business in order to keep the business alive to die another day, right? So when we passed that 10 threshold, which I said earlier on this call, we did on that second year, we went from, we started the year with 2 properties and we ended with 21. And we noticed that as soon as we were collecting the cash flow from all 21 of those doors, is we always had a sufficient amount of cash flow. If a new property needed a roof, we could pay for it from the cash flow from those other properties in the portfolio where rent was paid, but they had no issues. So from there, the conversations of how much money we needed to put into the business on a monthly basis in order to keep everything running smoothly, those became more and more spaced out to the point where they just never happened anymore. That is all that I have on calculating rental property expenses and how I think you should do them. So that's my philosophy. So rather than putting these soft made up expenses into your analysis, I would say I think the more appropriate thing to do, rather than setting aside money for capital expenditures and repairs and maintenance on a monthly basis, is I would say an appropriate reserve for you to start out with is imagine that the two biggest ticket items need to be replaced at the same time. So if you've got a property, if you're buying it and it has an older roof, go ahead, figure out how much that roof is going to cost and set aside that money for a roof. And then do that same thing with the second item. So if you know that the HVAC system is going to cost 15 grand to replace, when it's time to replace it, go ahead and set that money aside as well. And when you have enough in reserve to replace the two biggest capital expenditure items, then chances are you're going to be good on covering any of those costs whenever they arise, either capital expenditure or the repairs and maintenance. And then just make sure that you are adding to that on a monthly basis. So I think one of the things that kind of steers people astray is whenever they assume because a book or a podcast or some other YouTuber told them that they would be safe and that they're going to be uber conservative in their analysis of a property if they are putting aside 10% for capital expenditures and 10% for repairs and maintenance on a monthly basis, then whenever anything happens, they're going to have enough set aside in order to do that. But I mean, if we play that out, let's say you have a property rented for $1,000 per month, right? So you're putting in 10% for CapEx, that's $100 per month. And you're putting in 10% for repairs and maintenance. So it's $200 per month is going aside for anything that property might arise, right? Well, from the insurance agency perspective, I've had a lot of new investors call me, 6 months in for them owning a property, trying to figure out if some event that occurred, something that went wrong with that house is covered from insurance, like the plumbing. It's going to cost $4,000 to replace the plumbing. Well, if you set aside $200 per month, you're not going to have that much money set aside to make those repairs 8 months from now. So starting with a healthy reserve and adding to it is a significantly better strategy than setting aside what you think is a conservative amount of money on a monthly basis, because capital expenditures don't care. It's also not like you can pay your contractors the same way that you budget those funds, right? So it's not like you can give a contractor that comes in and does a roof for you, you can't give him $200 per month. There's a lot of exposure there that you need to cover for by having that money on the front end as reserves. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you being on here. I haven't seen you on here before, so thanks for stopping by this morning and asking all these awesome questions. I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching that clip. I thought that was a good question. And I think you can ask good questions too. Join us every Friday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for a live stream Q&A where we answer plenty of questions just like this one. In the meantime, consider subscribing to the channel if you want more of this content. And if you want to increase your deal flow, analyze properties better, and help me feed my family, click the link below for a free 7-day trial of PropStream.